Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. Thank you for being here. This is about nature and mental health well-being. Just a few housekeeping things before we start. First, we do ask you to keep your mic off and video turned off. We'll be using the chat or the Q&A function to ask your questions to Vanya. And we will just take a few minutes at the end to answer questions. All of your questions will be answered at the end of the Zoom, and then if we don't get to them, we can answer them through email. So again, put those questions in the Q&A option at the bottom of your screen for Vanya and the others. We're excited to have Vanya with us today. She's a registered nurse and direct diabetes educator here in our department at Providence Wellness Center. With that, Vanya, I'll pass it on to you.
Thank you, Sarah. I hope everybody can hear me okay. Yes, my name is Vanya. I'm a registered nurse, a diabetes educator. I'm also a board certified nurse coach, and I am a lover of nature. The forest is my happy place. I go there to recharge and to refresh. And today I want to share with you some of the things I have learned about nature throughout the last several years and share with you how it can transform our well-being and help us live a happier life. Most of the information on the presentation today is taken from two fascinating books on nature. One is called Your Brain on Nature, if you're interested in reading it, by Dr. Ava Selhub and Dr. Alan Logan, and another book called By the Sea by Dr. Deborah Cracknell. Great books I recommend. So John Burroughs said already back in the 1800s, I go to nature to be soothed and healed and to have my senses put in order. You know, we live in a world that is both difficult and beautiful, that has the capacity to hurt us, but also to heal us. And it seems sometimes that it's easy for us to focus on the negative things, the problems, the hurts, the pains. Those, after all, affect us in a very personal and deep ways. But today, however, I want to focus on the ways the world can help us manage the difficulties of life and even sometimes heal us from the pain. And so we're going to talk about ways of using natural resources without hurting the planet, which I think is great. Now, some numbers, some statistics. 1 in 5 adults here in the US suffer from mental illness, and anxiety is the most diagnosed, 42.5 million people. Depression affects 21 million people here in the US. I have a feeling the numbers are greater. These are the ones that are diagnosed. There's probably a lot of people, excuse me, a lot of people suffering from this alone without a diagnosis. Also, in the last few years, there has been a lot of research into the mental illness with the young adults and youth, because we're seeing an increase in that too. And then 60 to 70% of Americans experience stress that affects their physical and mental well-being. That's more than half of the population. That is quite a large number of people. Now, what does this mean and how does this translate into real world living? So what this means is that many of us are fatigued, no matter how much we sleep. We lack motivation personally or professionally. We have these persistent feelings of overwhelm or apathy. We have trouble completing tasks at work. We feel a lack of interest in normal activities, have a sense of languishing or a lack of purpose. We feel moody and get easily annoyed with others. It can also mean that many have difficulty relaxing and are forgetful or have reduced focus, just simply going through the motions every day, wanting to isolate or even self-medicate through the use of alcohol, drugs, or other things. If you relate to any of these things in any way, I want you to know that you don't have to go through it alone. There is help available, so please reach out to your healthcare provider. Get connected with a mental health provider for help. Now, some of these symptoms that I just talked about are made worse due to our modern world. Now, technology and modernizations have been great in many ways. I am very grateful for Siri to tell me when I need to turn right or left. But the technology also has added some stressors in other ways, and we have all experienced that. Interesting to know that heavy internet users score low on emotional intelligence. And this is a measure of how we use emotions in solving problems. The heavy internet users also have alterations in the way they perceive and process the human face. And so this can affect empathy and the ability to know when someone is in need. And then you have distractions and information overload, which, yes, lots of information overload in this world, and this can affect our judgment. And unfortunately, the degree of modernization is also associated with increased rates of depression, when I think many of us have experienced this in a personal way. And then you have environmental noise, all the traffic and all the noise in the city. This also promotes the production of stress hormones, and that can contribute to insomnia and enhances the likelihood of depressive thoughts and anxiety. So yeah, our modern world has definitely an impact in us. Now, just an interesting fact, here in the United States, we have this really large country, but urban areas make up only 3% of the entire land area of the country. But this is where more than 80% of the population call home. On the other hand, you have 97% of the country's land mass as rural, but only 19.3% of the population lives there. So the percentage of population moving into the city has really been growing over the past decades worldwide. And this means that more of us are living closer together in smaller spaces. And unfortunately, cities are associated with higher rates of mental health problems such as depression and anxiety. In addition, people who live in cities experience more loneliness, isolation, and stress, which shows that we can feel alone even when we are surrounded by a lot of people. So yeah, the world does have an effect on us in many, many ways. Unfortunately, many have been negative, but there are some things, however, that we can do to help us in our journeys through the difficulties of life. And that's what I want to focus on today. So I have a question for you. We are going to do a poll. Let me see how I get this. So I want to know where you grow up. I want to know, did you grow up in the country and built forts in the woods and came home all dirty and muddy? Or did you grow up in the city and still got to use a lot of your imagination to have fun? So yeah, go ahead and answer the question, please. Can you see the poll? I don't know if you can see the poll or you don't want to answer. I'll just give you a few more seconds for people to answer. All right, so I'm closing the poll, and you probably have your lunch, didn't answer, which is fine. But I just want to share that I personally grew up in the city. I played outside on cobblestone streets. I played hide and seek behind the chimneys of our townhouses and the townhouses nearby ours. I am so glad that I was able to become an adult after playing on the rooftops. I also would go to the park and enjoy the park with my family. And then as I grew up, I enjoyed other things city life has to offer, such as shopping or restaurants, museums, concerts, and all kinds of cultural events. And also got to enjoy traffic and noise and busyness and stress. So some of those things that we get to experience when we are grow up and live in a city. Now, my busy city life did a 180-degree change when several years ago, my family and I had the opportunity to live in Fairbanks, Alaska. And yes, that was our house in the winter. Alaska is an outdoorsman dream place. And we got to experience some amazing things. All of a sudden, I went from the city to being submerged in nature. I got to live in the middle of nowhere. It was just us and the birds and the foxes and the moose and the wolves and the bears and unending, untouched forest. It was just beautiful. Now I had rivers to explore by boat and rainbows to see under the midnight sky or the midnight sun. I mean, there were hikes to be made in bear country and glaciers to explore from inside a little airplane, adventures near the Arctic Ocean, which is so cold, even in the summer. I had the Northern Lights to just admire and wonder that it's so beautiful, and cold temperatures in the winter like I had never experienced before. So -63 was the coldest I got to experience. And yes, those are my eyelashes with the ice. I think I was outside for about 15-30 minutes at 30 below when my husband took that picture. But it was in Alaska that I developed a love for the natural world, because I got to experience its influence on me like I had never been able to experience before. And it was fantastic, and I embraced every bit of it. Now, I don't live in Alaska anymore, but ever since I'm drawn to nature and try to absorb as much of it as possible, because I know how it affects my well-being. And here in the Pacific Northwest, we have so many beautiful places to explore. I have been loving it. And I usually go bird watching because it's a way to get me outside into the natural world. All right, just for fun, I have another question. Let's see if it works. I want to know if I have any fellow Arctic explorers here. So let's do this one. And I want to know how many of you have experienced temperatures of 40 below and got to have some ice on your eyelashes. Give you more seconds to answer. All right, so it seems like no Arctic explorers here besides me, which is okay. Those frozen eyelashes can get sticky, and then it's difficult to blink. Absolutely. So it's not so much for its beauty that the forest makes a claim upon men's hearts, as for that subtle something, that quality of air, that emanation from old trees that so wonderfully changes and renews a weary spirit, said novelist and poet Robert Louis Stevenson. And thankfully, science is catching up with what the poets have been saying and starting to discover what is that something about nature that can be so good for us. So most of us have experienced how refreshing it can be to just breathe in that morning air and the vigor we experience now in the spring where everything is coming back to life. how fresh it feels after the rain, or how calm it is to look at a winter wonderland landscape, and how invigorated we can feel under the sunlight. But why do we feel this way? And how can we harness more of it? So a lot of the research began by analyzing the effects that just seeing nature has on our brains. Sometimes just looking at a picture of a beautiful landscape brings calm feelings in us. And it so happens that what we see affects different areas of our brain. So for example, scientists are looking at people's brains MRIs while the study subjects were looking at pictures. And when they were seeing pictures of nature, the insula, an area of our brain that is connected with joy and positive emotions, generosity, empathy, positive thinking, love, would get stimulated. In contrast, looking at urban scenes affect our amygdala and anterior temporal pole, which are associated with fear, impulsivity, anger, depression, and anxiety. Now, this raises some questions up for me, because it makes me think, if we spend the majority of our time, day after day, month after month, year after year, in urban settings, stimulating our amygdala, which is linked to our experience of anxiety and fear, what does that do to the way we see the world, our lives, and the people around us? On the other hand, if we spend healthy amounts of time in nature, which activates the insula, helping us to be more generous, having more empathy and positive thoughts, what do you think that will do to the way we see the world, our lives, and those around us? Something to think about. Now, if seeing pictures of nature has such a positive effect, what happens if we are fully immersed in the natural world and are surrounded by trees and water and walking in the forest and breathing that forest air, the natural world? So this is what researchers are looking into when they study Shinrin Yoku, or forest bathing. I don't know if you've heard of that, but what this means is to be fully immersed, taking in with our five senses the forest atmosphere. A lot of the research began in Japan. That's why we have this name, Shinrin Yoku. But research of this has just expanded throughout the world. And researchers are finding how can providers prescribe more vitamin N nature. But so by measuring blood levels before and after either nature or city walks, and then comparing them, scientists have learned that being in nature is associated with increased serotonin production. Now, almost all antidepressant medications are thought to work by enhancing the availability of serotonin, which is sometimes called the happy chemical. So truly, forests have a cheerful and tranquilizing influence upon the mind. Now, forest bathing has also shown to decrease levels of cortisol, our stress response hormone, and lower blood pressure and pulse rate. So elevated levels of cortisol caused by chronic stress can cause inflammation and affect our metabolism, and can lead to hyperglycemia and affect sleep. So nature calms all of that down. Now, I want to do a disclaimer here, because if you suffer from depression or anxiety or any other mental illness, please follow up with your healthcare provider. Don't stop medications without medical advice. Even though nature is very, very powerful, there are times we need medical and pharmacological intervention, and that is okay. I have had to use both. Sometimes I'm in a mental state that a nature walk just helps me, and there has been times that I needed more, and that is fine. So what we can do is use nature therapy together with conventional therapy. Now, here's something fascinating. Forest bathing has also shown to increase the number of natural killer cells, the cells that defend our immune system from disease. And how does that happen? So it happens that evergreens release a chemical called phytoncide that helps them prevent disease. Now, when we go for a walk, in the forest and breathe in those chemicals, our own immune defenders get stronger and our bodies are better able to prevent and fight off disease. How neat is that? What prevents disease in trees also helps prevent disease in us. Now, phytoncides also lower the production of stress hormones, reduces anxiety, and increase the pain threshold. Now, a weekend trip to the forest, walking about 1.5 miles twice a day, can benefit us not just for that weekend, but the benefits can last for a whole month. So this is a great reason to incorporate some forest therapy a few times a month. There are other aspects of nature that can help us, not just the trees, not just seeing the nature, but for example, sounds. The sound of a creek induces changes to brain flow that indicates a state of relaxation. And the sound of birds in the morning can lift mood and decrease fatigue. Exposure to nature can impact, for example, how quickly we recover from hospitalization, how well we do in academic performance, graduation rates. It can even cause a reduction in ADHD symptoms, which I find that's fascinating. The mere presence of a potted plant can improve productivity. So it's a good incentive to get a plant to your office space. And then you have natural light in different colors and aromatic scents. All of that can benefit people with depression. As far as natural light goes, sunlight, as it enters our eyes, directly impacts the production of serotonin, that happy hormone. So our winters here in Spokane can be long and gray due to the long periods of cloudy days. So light therapy in the morning can improve cognitive function, make you feel more alert, improve personal happiness, and also help with sleep. So this last winter, I got me a happy lamp, and it has made a big difference in my moods this winter, and I love it. Just put it really close to my face in the morning. Just enjoy reading and starting the day like that. Now, water can also impact our well-being, and many of us enjoy being by the water. Waterfront property, if you're buying a home, can be more expensive for many reasons, but perhaps the most value comes from the effect it has on our health. The sounds, the sights, the feel, the scent of water from the ocean and the rivers and the lakes can benefit us in many ways. It promotes relaxation. It also helps us be more invigorated, decrease stress, anxiety, depression, and also increases optimism and help us sleep better. Maybe that's why after a day at the lake or swimming in the swimming pool, we sleep so much better at night. So these are all good reasons to book that beach vacation this summer. So there are many benefits to nature, as we just mentioned in the last several minutes. Psychologically, it reduces psychological stress, it reduces depressive symptoms, reduces hostility, improves sleep, increases vigor, increases a feeling of liveliness, and promotes relaxation. And it has some benefits to us physically that can also influence our mental well-being, because it lowers levels of cortisol, it lowers blood pressure, it lowers pulse rate, strengthens the immune system, increases the number of natural killer cells, and increases the amount of intracellular anti-cancer proteins. That's so interesting. So I have another poll, and I would like to know, what is your favorite way of spending time in nature? So what is your favorite way of spending time in nature? By the ocean, the forest, on a lake, by fields of wheat? I'm thinking about the Palouse here. Camping, walks in neighborhoods, desert landscapes, or in the garden. just a few more seconds if anybody wants to answer. All right, just ending the poll. So I think for me, it's a combination of being in the ocean and near the ocean and the forest, which is like perfect for here for the Pacific Northwest because we can walk in the forest with the ocean right there. The Pacific Ocean is just perfect combination for me. So how can we add nature to our lives? So some of the things that you can do, well, we were talking about the city, and fortunately, a lot of this research is getting the attention of those responsible for urban design. And so there's a lot of conversation about how to add more green areas to the cities, and that is wonderful. But you don't have to wait for the next city park to go up. There's some things you can start doing at home already, wherever you live, and adding plants to your environment, be it inside the home, planting a balcony garden, or bringing some potted plants to your workspace. That really improves well-being. Plants also serve as air filters, and that's something we can all use. You can also use small amounts of essential oils that they can stimulate our brains through our sense of smell. There's a lot of research into aromatherapy. I'm not going into that here, but definitely when it comes to aromatherapy, less is more. So definitely be mindful of that. And then you can bring nature sounds inside. You can use the sounds of birds early in the morning by opening your windows, or you can even use some apps. There's sound apps or meditation apps, or you can even use YouTube. YouTube has lots of videos that you can use. Sometimes they add a little bit of music. I like to listen to the thunderstorms, or the sound of creek, or the ocean, rain, the crickets at night. There's just so many different sounds and available apps, so check that. Also, exercising outdoors, because exercise, if practiced consistently, has many benefits to mental well-being, such as lifting the mood and lowering anxiety and helping with stress management. So now when you add those benefits with those of being in nature, now we got more satisfaction, more enjoyment, and less frustration. Exercising in the forest elevates mood and vigor while lowering fatigue, tension, and anger. Now, still remember, start slow and go slow. This is the best way to prevent injuries and set you back on your wellness goals. That's important. You may go alone if you want, enjoy some time for contemplation or recharging your batteries. For those with mental health disorders, group walking in nature has been described as a healing balm for the mind. If you can find somebody to go with you, that's great. But even if not, that's fine. Just get outside in nature. Another thing you can do is get a pet. Interaction with animals fosters positive thoughts. For example, studies have shown that interacting with dogs can cause an increase in the production of oxytocin, a hormone that is produced in the brain that facilitates social bonding and pro-social behavior, and also helps decrease stress while enhancing a sense of security and trust and pleasure. So getting a pet is a good way to add some nature to our lives. You can also plant a garden. Studies show that gardening provides a sense of fascination and gives the opportunity for quiet and peacefulness and tranquility. Other benefits of gardening include helping improve motivation, helps you process grief, depressing thoughts, anxiety, improves sleep, self-esteem, reduces stress, and just gives you an overall psychological well-being. I love getting to my garden and just pulling weeds. That is just so healing. Gardening also energizes us and promotes health and happiness. And these benefits come from many things, from being outside in the fresh air, but also from seeing the plants grow from seed to this full plant. And even the bacteria in the soil has benefits to us physically and mentally. And you can also plant fruits and vegetables, which is going to encourage you to eat more fruits and vegetables, and does add another layer to your way of using nature for well-being. Unprocessed whole plant foods provides you with antioxidants and anti-inflammatory support, and they're protective against depression and also increase vitality. So whole foods diet promotes not only physical but also mental well-being. You can get into nature photography, take pictures of nature. Photography helps you be in the moment, pay attention to details around you as you search for the perfect item to take a picture of, and maybe then share it on social media. You can use a fancy camera if you'd like to, but our phones now can do some pretty cool things, our camera phones. Go on a nature walk and then write about it and share with a friend the things that you saw. And I am going to add one more to this list because it's my favorite. Go bird watching, because bird watching is just a perfect excuse to see what's going on outside of our windows. And you get to learn about our feathered friends. So today I want to encourage you to get outside and play, wonder, marvel, reflect, meditate, look and listen, and just relax. Be in the present. Go for a walk and notice the things around you. Now in the spring, even just walking in the neighborhood, look at all the different flowers that your neighbors are growing, or your own, or the little wildflowers in the forest, and see the different colors. Feel the texture of the petals, the different colors, the smells of the flowers. The trees, do they have leaves? Do they have needles? Touch the bark, see how tall they are. Look at the sky, the clouds. Just enjoy the breeze on your face. Listen to the song of birds and watch the activity of insects and movements of water. And just taking long, deep breaths of that fresh morning air before it gets really hot, or even the evening breeze at sunset. Go watch the sunset. Take time to submerge yourself in nature and drift away from the worry of the future or the experiences of the past. It's so beneficial to our minds. Being connected to nature gives us the sense of meaningful involvement in something that is larger than ourselves, and that is so healthy for us. So I want to end with a quote by Rachel Carson, an American marine biologist and writer. And she wrote once, "Those who contemplate the beauty of the earth find reserves of strength that will endure as long as life lasts. There is something infinitely healing in the repeated refrains of nature, the assurance that dawn comes after night and spring after winter." And just to share with you some of the upcoming events here at our department, weight management meal plan is a recurring enrollment. So if you're interested in that, just call us. Mental health first day, May 18th. Blood pressure self-management is coming up on June 1st. And by the way, May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So this is a great time to check on the mental health first aid. Prevents type 2 diabetes class. So that is June 6th. And then our next lunch webinar is going to be on June 20, being an informed health news consumer. There's so much information out there. Sometimes we don't know what to believe. I hear that often from our patients. So yeah, give a call to get some more information. And I don't know if there are any questions. Sarah?
Well, thank you so much, Vanya. Yeah, if anybody has any questions, you can put it in the chat box or the Q&A chat. There's one question. What do you recommend for people to do if the weather isn't perfect, like it is now? If it's like snowing or raining or things like that.
Yeah, so how to enjoy nature in the winter, right? Well, definitely check the weather and see if you can still go and walk, spend some time outside, just dress warm. I think the hardest thing is when it gets icy. But otherwise you just have to bundle up and still go outside, slow walking, or even just open the door and just take in some of that fresh winter air. And some of the things that I mentioned before, plants, taking care of your plants, bring some of those sounds of nature indoors. And it could even be watching nature video or anything like that. So yeah, so those are some of the things that you can do here in Spokane.
Nature. Just a reminder that we will be sending out this recorded webinar through email. We'll send it out in a week or two. And thank you, everybody. Thank you, Vanya.
Thank you. Bye.